Hi, today we're going to go over the notes for reflection and rotation. These are two of the transformations in this unit. So just so everyone's on the same page, whenever we have a pre-image or the original figure, it's going to look like this, just regular capital letters. When we move the figure, that is called your image, and we put a little prime symbol next to it, and so that's how you know it's the second figure, and you put these little markings. So that's how you distinguish between the first figure and the second figure. Now, everything that we're going to do today has all the shapes that stay the same shape and same size. We're just going to flip them, rotate them, and we're going to start right in. So you're going to need your cheat sheet, and you need to write down a bunch of stuff. Now for your reflection, whenever we cross the x-axis, okay, so we're going to write down all this stuff. Whenever you cross the x-axis, the other variable, the y, changes sign. So that's the way I always remembered this. So if the x-axis, the y over here changes to the opposite sign. And we're going to practice this here in just a second. Whenever you're reflecting over the y-axis, the other variable, which is the x, notice here it changes signs. Now, we also have diagonal lines. Now, this is a positive line. Now, keep in mind, y equals mx plus b. So that's in this form. So technically, my slope is 1, and my b that is 0. So this is going through 0, 0, and this is a positive slope diagonal line. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to take your x and y value, and you're just going to flip them. So y becomes x and x becomes y. Whenever you have this diagonal line with a negative, that's a negative slope. So it goes the other direction. And what's going to happen is you're going to kind of do the same thing. You're going to make your x the y the x, and you're going to make them the opposite signs. Again, we're going to practice all of this. Just make sure you write it all down on your sheet. The second thing we're going to talk about today is a rotation. Now, very important. Whenever we rotate, we're rotating it about 0, 0. So when you do this, here's the weird thing. It's always counterclockwise. So if I start with the figure in quadrant 1, let's just pretend all of this is in quadrant 1. If I rotate it 90 degrees, it's going to rotate over in this quadrant. And so that is quadrant 2. If I take this first figure and I rotate it 180 degrees, it's going to rotate it 90 and 90 more. So it's going to end up down here in quadrant 3. So, and finally, if I take this first figure and I rotate it, 100 or 270 degrees. So that's 90, 90, and 90. So it moves around 3 different quadrants. So it ends up in quadrant 4. Now, again, this is something that's very important. You need to memorize it. And over the years, I found it easy to kind of memorize this so you could write it down quickly. So if you're going to do 90, 180, 270, so I just flip them, flip it again, and flip it again. Okay. Sorry, my handwriting is not the best on this. And then it's the first one's negative, they're both negative, and then the last one's negative. I don't know. I just find it easy to jot it all down, and then you have it for reference if you don't have your little cheat sheet handy. Now, for some of these, for time reasons, I went ahead and plotted the first part. You can always pause this video if you need to. On this first one, I'm going to reflect it over the x-axis. So I already plotted the points. I drew in the x-axis. Okay, so pause it and catch up with me. Now, we're reflecting over the x-axis. So that means the y, right, because this is x and this is y. The y will change to the opposite sign. So my a is at -4, 2. So this turns into -4, -2. That's all you have to do is change it to the opposite. So let's take this y value and change it to the opposite. So it's 4, -7. And then lastly, take that and change it to the opposite. So it's 5, -1. All right, and so you always need to go ahead and plot it to make sure it looks correct. So let's do that real quick. And that's where my screen usually messes up when I touch it with my hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. And then 4, -7. Now notice when I plot A, I put that little apostrophe next to it. And I'm going to do this again. So you can tell it is the second image. See, my hand touched it and it kind of freaks out. All right, so then 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. No. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this is B prime. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1. And that becomes C prime. And then attempt to connect them. And it should be, ooh, that's bad. It should be equal size in the same shape, just reflected. So if you were to fold your paper on the x-axis right here, would the two shapes coincide? Would they touch and overlap at every part? And, if we did it, exactly with the ruler and everything, it would. It looks fine. Okay, so now we're going to reflect over the y-axis, which means the other variable, the x, is going to change signs. Okay, so the 1 turns negative, so it's -1, 2. The 2 turns to the opposite, which is -2, 5. 8 turns into -8, 3. And then lastly, -7, 0. So when we do this, it should be over here. Now, these are the correct coordinates. So let's say you're doing this and you forget this little trick. The other way of doing this is to say from this reflection line, P is 1 unit over. So from here, I'm going to go over the other direction 1 unit. Make that P prime. From Q, from the reflection line is 2 over. So I can go 2 over, put a dot and call it Q prime. Here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So if I go 8 over, I get R prime. And then that would match up and go here. And if I connect them, okay, it's a mirror image. Again, I'm reflecting over this y-axis and they are exactly the same. So far, so good. Now, this is the weird one. This is the one I was trying to warn you about. Again, this is really the y equals mx plus b form. The x is tells you the number in front tells you the slope. So really this has a slope of -1. So from 0, 0, I'm going up 1, back 1, up 1, back 1, up 1, back 1. Okay, so this one, you do kind of need to memorize the way you do it. So we're going to take your x and y coordinate. We are going to flip them and they turn to the opposite side. Now, if you forget this, write it on your cheat sheet because it is on your paper. Remember way up here, it's on your cheat sheet. Okay, so you have that information. So let's take our first coordinate, the 1, 3. We're going to flip them. So it becomes 3, 1, and they both become the opposite side. So whenever you see this little negative, that just means turn it to the opposite side. 0, 6 becomes 6, 0. And they turn to the opposite sign, but 0 is neutral, so it stays 0. 3, 5 turns into 5, 3, and they both become negative. And 2, 2 is kind of a weird one because, when you flip it, it stays the same, and they both become negative. Okay, so moment of truth. Let's plot this and see if it worked out. So 1, 2, 3, down 1. So A prime. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is B prime. So that would be negative 5. 1, 2, 3. And then 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, so by looking at this, it looks like something's wrong. And I see it. When I circled this, I could not see that that was negative 1, 3. I thought it was positive 1, 3. So I need to switch this to a positive because the opposite of a negative 1 is a positive 1. And I can tell by my graph that was wrong. So my graph helped me figure out that that was wrong. So let's try this. 1, 2, 3, up 1. Okay, so that looks a lot better. So plot it and see if I can. I'm trying to do this without touching the screen, which isn't very easy. Okay, so that looks so much better. So I didn't mean to mess up, but it's kind of good that you can see, when you mess up, you can kind of find your mistakes sometimes. All right, now, again, each time you do this, you have to kind of just read the directions, see what it's telling you to do. Now, this one has a reflection line at negative 1. Now, this tells you what axis. This is the x-axis, so I labeled the x-axis. You're going to go to negative 1, and you're going to draw a line straight through it. So I already have it drawn in, but make sure you know how to draw in x is negative 1. Now, just so we can say we practiced this, if I said y, let's do negative 1. Y is negative 1. Do you know how to graph that line? You would go to the y-axis and then go down to negative 1, and you would draw it in that direction. Okay, so write whatever you need to write down on your cheat sheet. That will help you. So remember back on this one here, how I taught you, you can go over 1 and then you would go back 1. That's the way you should really try this problem. So this is your reflection line. It's 1 away. So this is your new point. So it's R prime. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Get S prime. It's 2 over, so I go 2 over and get U prime. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's T. Okay, so let me try to connect these without touching my screen. Okay, good. Now, the only hard part about this, and it's not really hard, when you're finished, you have to go back and you have to find the coordinates. Now, remember, you're starting from 0, 0, so we have to start here to count this out. So R is really negative 2, positive 1, 2, 3. So negative 2, 3. S is negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and up 1, 2, 3, 4. T, well, I know this is an 8 by 8 graph, so that's back 8 and down 1. So back 8, down 1. And then 1, 2, 3, and down 1, 2. Okay, so it's really not harder. It just takes more effort to get the final answer. Okay, now moving on to rotations. We're going to take our x and y value. We're going to flip them. Whatever the x value was, we're going to make it the opposite. Kind of tricky. All right, and so sometimes, just because of the way my brain works, I like to underline the one I have to change to the opposite. So I'm changing the y to the opposite, but I also have to flip them. So let's flip them and change the 7 to a positive. Or from a positive to negative. So it's negative 7 and then 2. Flip them. So it becomes negative 5, 6, and flip them, negative 1, 4. All right, so if we do this right, remember, it should end up over in the next quadrant to the left, if we do this correctly. So let's try this. I know this is 8 by 8 graph, so this is negative 7 up 2. So that's A prime. and back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and up 6. So that's B prime. And back 1, up 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's C prime. Okay, so it will be rotated differently, and it's being rotated. Now, if you think about a clock, like if there was like a stick connected to it, as it rotates, this is kind of a good thing to think about. From C back to 0, 0, and from C prime to 0, 0. If you look at it, like the way I just did, you'll notice that's a right angle. That's 90 degrees. And that's going to work that way for all the different angles when you rotate it 90 degrees. All right, let's look at the 270. Now let's think about this. So if I rotate it to here, that's 90, 180. So it's going to end up way up there, 270 degrees. And on this one, it looks like we're only going to work with N. Okay, so let's find the coordinate of N. So back 1, and then down 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we are going to flip them and change the X to the opposite. Okay, so, see, I touched the screen. Let's flip them, and then the -1 turns positive. Okay, and you can do it however you like, but I always like to underline the one I have to change to the opposite. All right, so again, let's practice this. Oh, and let's check this one here. I predicted it would be in this quadrant in 1, 2, 3, 4, and up 1. So it ended up there. And this one will be easier to tell because you're going to graph the entire figure. And, oh, I didn't graph this one beforehand. I'm slacking. Let's do that real quick. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's J. So that's 4, 5, 6, 4, K. 8, 1 is L. And 1, 1 is M. If I did that too fast, you can always pause the video and kind of do it on your own time. Things are just opening on their own. Okay. Now, let's practice this. 90, 180, 270. So it's going to end up in quadrant 4 if we do this properly. Okay. Now, remember, you're going to flip them and change the X to the opposite. So I'm going to change that one, that one, that one, and that one. Okay, let's write these out. So it turns to 4, -3, and 4, -6, and 1, -8, and 1, -1. All right, let's try this. 1, 2, 3, 4, and down 3. 1, 2, 3. So this is J prime. And then I'm going to go down to -6 and put K prime. And then 1, -8, way down here is L prime. And 1, -1 is M. Okay, good. Looks like it worked. Now, we're back to 180 degrees. And these, what I wrote out, these are at the beginning of your notes, all these little hints. It turns to -x, -y, all this stuff. Again, this is at the beginning of your notes here. So I can't tell you enough. You need to write all these down and have them ready on your, test quizzes, everything. All right, so we're going to end up leaving the X and Y in their locations, but we're going to change all of the signs to the opposite. So 3 turns to negative, but the 2 turns to positive. And it goes to -6, -1, and -5, 7. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and plot the original one. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then -7. Okay, 180 degrees. Remember, 90, 180. So it should end up in quadrant 2. Let's try. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. So there's x prime. And there's -6, -1, y prime. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. It looks like it is in the correct quadrant. I can't draw straight, but you guys know what I mean. All right. Now, 2 more to go. This time it says y equals x. Notice that's really 1x. So that's the slope. So it's up 1 over 1. So notice from here, up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1. See if I can erase that without erasing my line. All right, so now we're just going to take the x and y values and flip them. The only difference is when this is a negative slope is that you make them both negative. So let's go back and look at this one. When the slope was negative up here, right up here, it showed that you flip the x and y, but you make them negative. When your slope is positive, you flip them, but you leave them the same without changing the sign. So let's try this. -1, -6, -2, -3, and -7, -5. All right. Let's plot the first one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's D prime. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. E. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Anyways, I'm going to change colors. Let's go pink. When I reflect this, it's going to be kind of on top of each other, because if I were to fold this paper on this line, notice that this little part of the triangle would fold back onto this part. So the two triangles will overlap and it will look a little messy, and that's fine. We just know that's going to happen. So D prime, back 2, down 3, there's E prime. And then back 7, down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And there's F prime. And as you can see, they do overlap, and that is expected. And we're finished with that one. We have one left to do. And I already drew in the line. We're going to go to the, and I did it wrong. I'm glad I caught that. Okay, let's plot the points and then I'll draw the line. So we go back 7 and then up 7. And that is M. Back 2, up 7. And there's N. Back 3, up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And there's O. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. There's P. All right, so we have a quadrilateral. All right, last one, we've made it. Now, the line that I cross, or the line that I draw, is on the y-axis. So we have to find this y-axis, go down to -3, and then the line goes through it. It goes through the x-axis. Okay, now, I'm just looking at this, and this is not going to fit. When I flip it, look how far away this is from this line. So when I flip it, it's going to flip way down here where there's not a graph. So I'm wondering if that's supposed to be a +3. And I'm just going to make a teacher prerogative of making it +3 so it fits on the graph. 1, 2, 3. That's going to fit so much better. Okay, so if I reflect it over this line, now it's all going to fit. Obviously, you guys can't just change a problem, but I did it just to make our life easier. All right. Now, when I flip this down, this point reflects onto itself. So P and P prime are the exact same location. Here's going to be O prime. This up one, and I'm going to go down one. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4. There's N prime. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And there's M prime. All right, so let's draw in. All right, this is as good as it's going to look. And again, this one you have to just count it out and write the coordinate. Remember, you're starting from 0, 0. So M would be at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Back 7, down 1. Back 7, down 1. And then back 2, down 1. And then back 1, 2, 3, up 2. And P stays exactly the same spot. All right, guys, that is it for notes. Please let me know if you guys have any questions.